there is no one right way to approach storyboarding. To give you a feeling for how I approach it, let me demonstrate. In Ratatouille, there was a moment where the restaurant critic, Anton Ego, sits down to order food at Gusteau's. At the start of the scene, Mustafa, the waiter, sees Ego enter the restaurant and approaches Ego nervously to take his order. As Ego tries to give his order, Mustafa doesn't understand what he wants. Ego stands up abruptly, makes his order clear, and then sits back down. Here's my thought process for boarding that moment. So I want to start to think in terms of shots, storytelling shots, where I'll draw simple frames and I'll try and figure out what's a good composition to set up what Ego's trying to do, right? Ego's trying to assert himself. Ego doubts the restaurant, so Ego's in a position of power. So I might start with something like, maybe I want to see Ego in an upshot, maybe. I don't know if that works, so I'm just going to keep exploring. I want to find something that feels interesting to me. I know I want a shot like this. I need to have a setup where maybe Ego's going to be by himself, and then maybe there'll be other tables around, other people, having a good time, whatever it is. I just want to make sure that Ego is the center of focus. There'll be a lot of people's backs, whatever it is. Now I need to figure out more of what else can happen. I know that a waiter's going to come in. Mustafa's going to come in at some point, so maybe what's the dynamic between them? Maybe I want to have, and I'm drawing really rough here just because I want to keep things simple. It's really important when you draw characters to, Ego is kind of like a spike of some sort, right? Maybe a vulture. He's all black with basically a white kind of oval head like that. And Mustafa, who's the other character in the scene, is a little bit more, doughy, a little bit more round and blocky. So when I go ahead and draw them later, I know that when I'm drawing my simple shapes, that this is something that I want to utilize so I can keep my drawing simple. Maybe I need an upshot, so I'm going to try this. And what I do in an upshot is maybe I want to have Mustafa kind of cowering a little bit. His head's kind of in his shoulders. Maybe he's holding his hands. Even though it's an upshot, which we've talked about being a position of possible dominance, I can flip that, meaning that I can now use size as a way to show dominance. Maybe I want to go over Ego's back altogether and make him occupy most of the frame, and therefore when I draw Mustafa, I might have him, even though it's an upshot, I'm going to have him a little smaller in the frame, giving Ego all the power of the frame.
I feel like every time that I look up storyboards and how they're supposed to look, they always look really nice. And I used to think that to do them properly, you actually had to be a good artist, which I am the exact opposite of. Which I guess is just a bad artist. But today I'm going to show you the basics of doing storyboards and show you that if I can do them, anyone can. And there are some amazing storyboard artists out there, like really good, to the point where you feel like you can already see the final look of the movie when you look at them. Seriously, really amazing people out there. But if you're like me, then you are not one of those people. The important thing is that you can interpret what you've drawn and that you can effectively translate them into the images you want. To demonstrate just how bad an artist you can be and still make this work, I'm going to use a few very quick excerpts from the short film script that I've been working on. And no laughing. I'll know. Here's an excerpt that I showed in the screenplay episode a few weeks ago, where the cabbie adjusts his rearview mirror to see William in the back seat. Now, as you can see here, that's supposed to be the cabbie's head in the foreground. That is William in the mirror. Those are supposed to be the buildings. That's supposed to be the street. So as you can see, I'm not very good. And just make it so you can identify the characters. Like, I know that that's William in the back seat because of that really well-drawn cowboy hat that's on him. It's a pretty still shot, but alongside your storyboards, you can add notes that tell you things like the lighting. In this case, I wanted William's face is in shadow. Now, I already sort of shaded in his face to get that across, but just so that people understand that if they look at this and can't quite understand what I've drawn, William's face in shadow, except for brief flashes from exterior light. You can also say the action that's supposed to take place, cabbie adjusts the mirror. I'm not drawing a really bad arm reaching up, but it will be understood that that happens in the shot. Here's a line from later in the script. Now he kind of does the dramatic turn back and says his line. Now, if you want to show on-screen movement, you can use arrows within the frame. In this case, I'm showing that his head is turning around, but not his body. You can use this for anything. You can use it for walking. You can use it for any small movement that you feel you can animate just using an arrow. You can do that. Now, in this shot, I also want the camera to push in. Now, I could draw a second closer picture to show that that's what I want to have happen, and then just label it accordingly. Something I'm going to show in just a second. But in this case, I can show that the camera needs to push in just by doing this. I've drawn what the final framing will be. These arrows here show that the camera will push in. Now just to show that it's a push and not a zoom, again, down in the notes, camera pushes in from medium to close-up. Now I've got the shot where the car full of the thugs is driving up slowly and they're all looking away from the camera out at the parking lot and the building in the background, looking for a particular car. Now I drew the worst car ever, but for the actual framing, I wanted it to be tighter, so I've adjusted the frame accordingly. You can actually draw the rest of the picture and just keep the frame for visual reference as to how it's supposed to look when it's shot. And again, I want the camera to move, but this time not, pushing in or zooming in, but I actually just want it to track along with the car. This is easier to get across if you use arrows that kind of cross the line from outside the frame into inside, and in this case, just for reference, I've written track. It's pretty simple. Drawing a car is not as simple for me. Now this is if you have one long shot, but you want to show multiple frames to show what the action's going to be. This one is going to be a shot that starts off on the ground, showing the door of a car opening, the legs stepping out, the camera pushes in and raises up and shows the character of William there, raising his gun and about to fire. Now as you go through your storyboards, you should number them, and if you have multiple frames for the same shot, you would just label it 1A, or whatever number A, then B, then C, etc. Now that's just a few brief storyboards for me, but they're good examples of what you can do when you really can't draw.
The setting or environment for each scene acts as a stage, and where you place your characters and camera within this space is called staging. Over the years, a number of different shot types have been introduced into film grammar to help the audience understand a story. For example, if the story calls for a new setting or environment to be introduced, it is common to start with the wide shot. Wide shots are staged by placing the camera far away from your characters to give a broad perspective and understanding of a new location. Wide shots used in this way are also called establishing shots. Establishing shots are often followed by a medium shot, like this one. Medium shots are personal, close enough to establish emotion and conversation, like if you were talking to a friend. When you need to punctuate an emotional moment or story point, close-up shots, like this one, can be very effective. These three shot types, wide, medium, and close-up, are the most commonly used kinds of shots. It's important to remember that when making your shot choices, you need to keep asking yourself two basic questions. What do you want the audience to know? What do you want them to feel? Framing your story points with clarity is essential. If the audience doesn't clearly understand the idea you're trying to communicate, nothing else matters. They'll be lost. When it comes time to deciding where in the frame your main subject should appear, the simplest thing to do is put them right in the middle, like this. Center framing generally offers a feeling of stability or neutrality. Another common framing choice is called the rule of thirds. Imagine breaking your frame into equal thirds, like this. Then you frame the shot so that your subject is at one of the four intersection points. Using the rule of thirds is a common practice for creating more interesting and natural compositions.